Vora had never felt warmth in her heart. Her kind, the core, were engineered to be cold, calculating warriors. Emotions, like love, were foreign concepts to them. They were trained to follow orders without hesitation, to fight without regret. But as she looked out at the blue planet below, something inside her stirred. Earth was different. The people were different. Vora's mission had brought her to this strange world, far from the cold battlefields of her home. She was part of a peacekeeping delegation, tasked with working alongside humans to establish a fragile alliance between their species. But there was one human who kept catching her attention, despite her best efforts to ignore him. His name was Adam, a human soldier who had been assigned to assist the delegation. He wasn't like the others she had met. While most humans treated her with caution and fear, Adam was different. He didn't seem afraid of her. He wasn't intimidated by her height or her sharp features, nor did he seem bothered by her emotionless demeanor. Instead, he saw her for what she was, a soldier, much like himself. And in his eyes there was something she couldn't quite understand: compassion. It wasn't long before Vora began to notice more about Adam. He had scars. Physical and emotional, but he never let them show. His eyes, however, told a different story. There was a sadness in them, a depth she didn't know how to explain. Vora wasn't accustomed to seeing that kind of emotion. In her world, feelings were seen as weaknesses. Yet, whenever she was around Adam, she felt something strange, something she had never experienced before. It was almost as if her heart were pulling her toward him, but she quickly dismissed the thought. She was core. Emotions were not for her kind. One evening, after a long day of training and debriefing, Adam and Vora found themselves alone in a small room. The others had gone to rest, leaving the two of them in silence. Vora couldn't help but notice how Adam's presence seemed to fill the space around her, though she said nothing about it. Instead, she stood by the window, staring at the stars. Beautiful, isn't it? Adam's voice broke the silence. She turned to find him standing behind her, his gaze also fixed on the stars. I suppose, Vora replied, though her words felt empty. She wasn't used to talking about beauty. It was something she couldn't comprehend. Adam moved closer, lowering his voice. You're a soldier, just like me, but you're not like the others I've met. There's something about you, a strength I can't describe. Vora's gaze turned sharply to him, her brow furrowing. She was trained to be strong, to show no weakness, but the way Adam spoke made her feel exposed. She didn't like it. She didn't like the way he saw her, not just as a soldier, but as something more. She was core, cold, and distant, as though she had no place for feelings. You misunderstand, she said, her voice colder than she intended. I am what I am because I was made this way. My kind does not feel what you do. Adam didn't seem bothered by her coldness. Instead, he stepped closer, his eyes still warm and understanding. I don't know much about your people, he said softly, but I've learned that we all have scars. See yours, even if you don't show them. And those scars don't make you any less. Vora stiffened. She wasn't used to having her vulnerabilities pointed out. She didn't have the same scars Adam had, the ones that were etched into his body from years of battle. But her scars were different, were internal, buried deep within, and she had long ago convinced herself that they didn't matter. Yet, Adam's words made her question that. I have no scars, she replied, trying to hide the discomfort she felt. I am designed to be perfect. There is nothing to scar. Adam smiled, but it wasn't a smile of mockery. It was kind, almost sad. Perfection, he muttered, almost to himself. You might not have scars like mine, but I know that everyone carries something, even the strongest. Maybe especially. The strongest, Vora wanted to argue, but the words felt hollow. She wasn't strong. She had been made to be a weapon, nothing more. She wasn't like Adam, who carried his scars with a quiet dignity, who showed kindness despite his pain.
Oh.
She wasn't like the humans who could love and fight for what they believed in. She had never known love, nor did she think she needed it. But as Adam stood there, his gaze soft and sincere, something in Vora shifted. She couldn't explain it, but for the first time in her life, she felt something stir inside her, a longing, a pull toward something she had never known. Before she could speak, Adam turned away, sensing her inner conflict. "I don't know how to fix what's broken inside of you, Vora," he said quietly, "but I'll be here. If you ever need someone to talk to or just to be with, I'll be here." Vora didn't know how to respond. She didn't want to acknowledge the feelings she felt growing inside her. She couldn't afford to. She was a core warrior. Emotions were a weakness. But something in Adam's words resonated deep within her. Something she couldn't ignore. "I don't need anyone," she muttered. Though it wasn't convincing even to herself, as Adam left the room, Vora's eyes lingered. On the stars again, her heart heavy with a weight she didn't understand. She had been trained to be emotionless, but in this strange new world, she was beginning to wonder if there was more to life than what she had been taught. For the first time in her life, Vora wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing. Adam's words had cracked something inside her, and she couldn't stop wondering what it would feel like to let that crack widen. Over the next few days, Vora tried her best to ignore the feelings she had begun to experience. The peace mission required her focus, but every time she looked at Adam, she felt her thoughts drift. He was always there, always kind, always willing to listen, and she couldn't understand why. His words, his care, began to echo in her mind. We all have scars, even the strongest. Maybe especially the strongest. Vora knew she couldn't let this distraction grow. She was a warrior, not someone who had the luxury of feelings, but something inside her kept pulling her toward Adam. She noticed things about him that she had never noticed about other humans. His quiet strength, the way he looked at the world with both sadness and hope. She could see it in his eyes even when he didn't speak. One evening, after a long training session, Vora found herself standing in the same spot as before, near the window. She looked out at the stars, feeling the cool air on her skin. It was strange to her, this feeling of peace that seemed to settle around her when she was away from the noise of the mission. "Do you ever wonder if we're just a small part of something bigger?" Adam's voice broke the silence again. No. She turned to see him standing by the door, watching her. Vora didn't know how to respond. She wasn't used to questions like that. The core had always been focused on strength and survival, not on wondering about the universe. But there was something about Adam's presence that made her want to understand. She nodded slightly, though she couldn't fully comprehend his words. Adam smiled softly and took a step closer. "I think about it all the time. We're just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. And sometimes I wonder what we're really meant to do in this world." Vora wasn't sure what he was asking, but she felt something shift inside her. The warmth that seemed to radiate from him was something she had never known. She had been designed to fight, to survive. But she had never been taught to live, too. Think about the bigger picture. Her people didn't question their purpose. They followed orders, and that was it. "You seem to think too much," Vora said, her voice cold, though not as sharp as before. She could feel herself softening. "Why do you ask these things? What do they matter to you?" Adam's expression didn't change. "I think because I've learned that sometimes asking the right questions is more important than having all the answers." Vora felt her confusion deepen. "You don't understand. My kind isn't meant for these things. We're made to fight, to follow orders, nothing more." Adam stepped forward, his voice gentle but firm. "And what happens when you're tired of fighting? What happens when there's nothing left to follow? What do you do then?" Or felt a pang of something unfamiliar deep inside her. She wasn't used to having these kinds of conversations. She wasn't used to asking herself such questions. She had been raised to never think about anything except the mission, the objective, the fight. But now, for the first time, she found herself questioning what it all meant. "I don't know," she said softly, her voice betraying the uncertainty she felt. "I don't know what happens next." Adam nodded slowly, understanding. Sometimes it's okay not to have all the answers. Sometimes it's okay to not know. Vora wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him that she couldn't afford to not know, that her people couldn't afford weakness. But as she looked at Adam, she realized something. He wasn't weak. He was kind, but he was also strong. He had fought battles, seen losses, and still carried on. And that made her wonder, was there something more to life than just fighting? Could there be something beyond survival? Days passed, and Vora continued to struggle with the feelings that seemed to grow stronger each time she was near Adam. She found herself watching him more often, noting the way he smiled at others, the way he listened with patience. It was almost as if he cared more for the people around him than he cared for himself. She could see the pain in his eyes, the memories of battles long past, but he never let it stop him. He didn't allow it to harden him like she had done with herself. One afternoon, while they were taking a break from their duties, Vora found herself sitting next to Adam, her gaze fixed on the horizon. He was quiet beside her, but she could feel the tension in the air, like a storm was waiting to break. She couldn't help but ask, "Why do you care so much?" Adam looked at her, his eyes soft but clear. "I care because I believe in the good in people. I believe that no matter how much we've been through, we can still choose to do better, to be better. And I care because I see something in you, Vora. I see a person who is so much more than just a soldier." Vora's heart skipped a beat at his words. She hadn't expected him to say something like that. She wasn't sure how to respond, so she remained silent, unsure of what to feel. But as she sat there next to him, she realized that maybe, just maybe, Adam was right. Maybe there was more to her than just the warrior she had been raised to be, in the quiet of the moment. Vora felt something stir within her again, something that both terrified and intrigued her. She had been taught that emotions were a weakness, but the way Adam looked at her, the way he cared for her, made her wonder if that belief was wrong. She didn't have the answers yet, but one thing was clear. Adam had shown her a world where love, kindness, and connection weren't weaknesses, but strengths, and though she didn't fully understand it yet, Vora knew that her life was beginning to change. The days passed slowly, each one filled with questions Vora had never dared to ask before. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts she didn't know how to control. Adam's kindness, his warmth, his quiet strength, it all began to pull her in. But she fought it every step of the way. She couldn't afford to be distracted. She was a warrior, a core. Her purpose was clear: protect the mission, and nothing else. Yet, as much as she tried to keep her distance, she found herself seeking him out. It was never anything obvious, just small moments, when he would laugh quietly at a joke shared between their human comrades. She would find herself watching. When he would take a moment to help others, offering a simple gesture of kindness, Vora couldn't stop herself from noticing. She had been trained to ignore such things, but she found them. ... Impossible to ignore. It was one evening, as they sat together after another long day of work, that Vora couldn't hold back anymore. She didn't want to feel this way. She didn't want to care, but she did. And that scared her more than anything. "Why do you keep doing this?" Vora asked, her voice colder than she intended, though she couldn't hide the confusion in her eyes. "Why do you care so much?" Adam glanced at her, his eyes soft but steady. He had always been patient with her, even when she couldn't understand why. There was something in his gaze, a calm understanding, as though he could see right through her walls. "I care because you matter," Adam said simply, his voice calm and reassuring. "Even if you don't believe it, you matter. It's not because you're a warrior, not because you've been trained to fight. You matter because you're human, or ... Well, as human as any of us can be." Vora felt a strange pressure in her chest, but she didn't know what it meant. It wasn't pain, it wasn't discomfort either. It was just a feeling, something foreign and unfamiliar. She didn't want to admit it, but she had begun to realize something. Adam was right. She had been running from this feeling for so long, afraid of what it meant. "I am not like you," Vora said quietly, staring at her hands. "I was not made to feel what you feel. We were created for war, for battle, not for ... This I don't know how to feel, how to be more than what I am." Adam reached out, his hand gentle as he placed it on hers. The warmth of his touch was unexpected, sending a strange sensation through Vora's body. She flinched, but Adam didn't pull away. He simply waited, giving her the time she needed to process. "You don't have to be anything else, Vora," Adam said softly. "You don't have to change who you are. You're already enough. I see you. And I know there's more to you than just the soldier you've been taught to be. You have the ability to feel, just like everyone else." Vora pulled her hand back. Slowly, not out of anger, but out of confusion. Her mind screamed at her to shut down, to push him away, to remain the core warrior she had always been. But her heart, the part she had tried so hard to ignore, was beginning to feel something she couldn't name. "I don't know how to love," she admitted, her voice low, almost a whisper. "I don't know what it means. You speak of love as if it is simple, but to me, it is foreign. It makes no sense." Adam's gaze softened further, and he gave her a small, understanding smile. "It doesn't have to be simple," he said. "Love isn't easy. It's messy, it's complicated, and it's scary.
Wow.
But it's also the most powerful thing we have. It's what connects us, what makes us human. And maybe it's the one thing that can heal even the deepest scars." Vora felt a tightness in her chest at his words. She wanted to deny them. She wanted to tell him that his beliefs were just human weakness, something that could never apply to her. But deep down she knew that he was right. There was something about love, something about the way he spoke of it, made her heart ache. "I have scars," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Scars that you can't see, scars from things I've done, things I've been forced to do, and I don't know how to let them go." Adam's expression softened even more, and without saying a word, he reached out again. This time, his touch was gentle on her cheek. Vora stiffened for a moment, but then she let herself relax into it, unable to pull away. His hand felt warm against her skin, a stark contrast to the cold walls she had built around herself. "You don't have to let them go all at once," Adam said quietly. "Healing doesn't happen overnight, but you can start by letting someone in. Let me be here for you, Vora. Let me help you carry those scars." Vora closed her eyes, taking in a shaky breath. She felt the weight of his words settle deep within her, stirring something she had kept hidden for so long. Could she really allow herself to feel something as powerful as love? Was it possible for someone like her, someone built to be emotionless, to learn how to love? The thought was terrifying. But as she felt Adam's hand on her face, as she felt his gentle touch and heard his quiet words, she realized that maybe she wasn't as broken as she thought. Maybe love wasn't something that had to be earned, or something that only humans could understand. Maybe love was just a feeling she had been too afraid to face. For the first time in a long time, Vora let herself feel. She didn't know what the future held, or how this would change her. But one thing was certain. Adam had opened a door, and she couldn't close it now. She didn't know how to love yet, but she was willing to learn, and for the first time, that felt like enough. The days that followed were filled with silence, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was different. Vora found herself thinking more and more about Adam, his words, and the way his touch had made her feel something she didn't know how to explain. She had spent her entire life fighting battles and following orders, never allowing herself to feel anything other than the cold, sharp edge of her duty. But Adam, with his patience and understanding, had somehow changed all of that. She wasn't sure how or why, but he had. Vora kept her distance, though, wasn't sure how to process what she was feeling. She had never been taught how to deal with emotions, especially not love. It was foreign to her. Weakness, her people had always called it, but Adam didn't see it that way. He saw love as a strength, a bond that could heal and change even the most broken of people. Could it really be true? One evening, while they were walking to the main building after another exhausting day of training, Vora couldn't help but notice how close they had become in just a few short weeks. It wasn't that they had spent more time together, it was more that Vora had started to let her guard down around him. She didn't know when it happened, but she had stopped pushing him away, stopped telling herself that she had no time for feelings. Adam walked beside her, his pace easy and steady. There was a quiet strength in him, something that Vora had never seen before. He wasn't afraid of the world, nor did he let it break him. He had faced hardship and pain, but still he smiled. Still, he cared for others, And that's what made him different. As they reached the door to the building, Vora stopped, turning to face Adam. For a moment, neither of them said anything. It was as if the world had paused, waiting for her to speak. "I don't understand this," she finally said, her voice soft but filled with uncertainty. "I don't understand why you're so kind, why you keep caring for me." Adam looked at her, his expression serious yet gentle. "I care for you because you're worth it, Vora. You're more than just a warrior. You're a person with feelings, with struggles. I see that." Vora shook her head, her eyes focused on the ground. "I don't know how to be what you want. I don't know how to let someone in, especially not ... you." Adam stepped closer, his voice soft but firm. "I don't want you to be anything other than yourself, Vora. I've never asked you to change. But I do want you to know that you don't have to carry everything on your own. You don't have to hide who you are anymore." The words hit her harder than she expected. For a moment, Vora felt her chest tighten, her throat constricting with emotion. She couldn't remember the last time someone had spoken to her like that. She had always been taught to be strong, to never show weakness. But Adam wasn't asking her to be anything other than what she was. He was offering something she didn't know how to accept: understanding, kindness, and the possibility of something more. "I don't know how to let go of everything I've been," Vora said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to stop being just a soldier, a weapon." "You don't have to," Adam replied softly. "But you can still be a warrior. But you don't have to carry the weight of the world alone. You're allowed to feel, to be more than just what you were made to be. You're allowed to have a future that's yours." Vora felt a tear slip down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away, not wanting to show any more weakness. She had never cried in front of anyone, not even after the hardest battles. Yet here she was, letting herself feel something she didn't understand. It was frightening, but it also felt like a relief. For a long time, they stood there in silence, the weight of their conversation hanging in the air between them. Finally, Adam reached out, gently cupping her face in his hands. His touch was warm, comforting, and it sent a shiver down her spine. "Vora," said softly, his voice low and tender, "I know this is hard, but you're not alone in this. I'm here, and I'll be here no matter what." Vora didn't know what to say. She wanted to pull away, to shut down the emotions that were building inside her, but something inside her told her not to. For once, she didn't want to run away from the feelings that were beginning to bloom in her heart. She wasn't sure if she could love, or if she even knew how. But she knew one thing: Adam had given her a glimpse of something she never thought possible. And for the first time, Vora allowed herself to close her eyes and lean into his touch, feeling the warmth of his hand on her face. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that with Adam, she didn't have to be alone in her struggle. She didn't have to carry her scars in silence. Adam gently leaned forward, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. Felt it. Felt the tenderness of the gesture, and for the first time in her life, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, love wasn't as far out of reach as she thought. When he pulled away, their eyes met, and for a moment the world seemed to stop. It was as if everything had fallen into place, and Vora knew, deep down, that something had changed between them. She didn't know how to explain it, but the connection was there, stronger than before. "I don't know what this means," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "Neither do I," Adam said with a smile. "We'll figure it out together." Vora nodded slowly, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in her life, she felt like she might be able to face it. And for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, love was worth the risk. The days grew shorter, and with each passing moment, Vora found herself questioning everything she had known. She had been raised to be cold and unfeeling, a warrior with no place for emotions. Yet every time she was near Adam, something inside her stirred, something she had never allowed herself to feel before. She couldn't ignore it any longer. She was afraid, but for the first time, she allowed herself to acknowledge the fear. Adam had been patient with her, understanding her silence, never pushing her to say what she wasn't ready to say. But even he couldn't hide his emotions entirely. She could see it in his eyes, the longing, the hope that she might feel the same way he did. And that made her heart ache. They were sitting together again, under the stars. In the same spot where they had shared their first real conversation. The night was quiet, and the only sound was the soft rustling of the wind through the trees. Adam didn't speak at first. He just sat beside her, letting the silence stretch between them. But Vora could feel the tension in the air, the unspoken words that were hanging over them both. "You've been quiet lately," Adam said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "I can tell something's on your mind." Vora glanced at him, her gaze lingering on his face. His expression was calm, but there was a hint of concern in his eyes. She didn't want to admit it, but the truth was, she had been avoiding him, avoiding the feelings that had been growing stronger inside her. She wasn't sure if she was ready to face them, but she knew she couldn't keep running from them forever. "I've been thinking," Vora said softly, her voice barely audible. "Not about what you said. About love. About how I'm not just a soldier. I'm more than that. I don't know what that means, Adam. I don't know how to be anything other than what I've always been." Adam's eyes softened, and he moved a little closer, his presence gentle and reassuring. "You don't have to know everything right away, Vora. It's okay not to have all the answers. But you don't have to do this alone either. I'm here, and I believe in you." Vora felt a tightness in her chest at his words. She wasn't used to hearing anyone speak to her like that. She wasn't used to anyone believing in her. She'd always believed in the strength of her people, the core. But now, for the first time, she was starting to believe in something else. She was starting to believe in Adam, in the way he saw her, in the way he cared for her without asking. For anything in return, she turned her gaze back to the stars, her heart heavy with the weight of her thoughts. "I've spent my whole life thinking that feelings are a weakness, that love is something we can't afford. I built my entire life around that belief. And now, now I'm not so sure." Adam didn't say anything at first. He simply watched her, his expression full of understanding. After a long pause, he spoke again, his voice quiet but filled with conviction. "You're not weak, Vora. You've fought battles that most people could never imagine. But love isn't about weakness. It's about connection, about trust. It's about letting someone in, even when it scares you. And I know it scares you." Vora flinched at the truth of his words. She had always been afraid of letting her guard down, of showing vulnerability, was afraid of feeling something she couldn't control. But Adam was right. The fear was there, yes, but it wasn't as strong as the longing she felt when she was with him. The pull that had been growing inside her ever since their first meeting. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted, her voice shaking slightly. "I don't know how to love. I don't know how to let someone in." Adam reached out, gently taking her hand in his. The touch was soft, but it was enough to send a jolt of warmth through her. She looked down at their hands, then back up. Him, his eyes were steady, full of kindness and understanding. "You don't have to know how right now," he said. "All you have to do is trust that it's possible. Trust that you don't have to carry everything on your own. Trust that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Vora's heart pounded in her chest as she stared at him. She didn't know how to respond, didn't know how to put into words what she was feeling. But as she sat there with Adam's hand holding hers, something inside her began to shift. Maybe love wasn't as far out of reach as she had always thought. Maybe it wasn't a weakness after all. Maybe, just maybe, it was the thing that could make her stronger. Without thinking, she leaned in slightly, closing the small gap between them. Adam's breath caught, and for a moment time seemed to stop. Vora could feel her pulse quicken, her mind racing. She had never done this before, never let anyone get this close. But Adam wasn't just anyone. He'd been patient with her, understanding her when no one else had. And then, before she could second-guess herself, Vora reached up and gently cupped Adam's face, pulling him closer. Their lips met in a soft, hesitant kiss, and for a moment, everything else faded away. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't rushed. It was just a quiet moment of connection, of trust, of something Vora had never thought she would feel. When they pulled away, Vora's breath was shallow, her heart racing in her chest. She looked at Adam, unsure of what to say. But Adam didn't say anything. He just smiled, his eyes filled with warmth and understanding. "You don't have to be perfect," he whispered. "You just have to be you. And that's enough." Vora didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in her life, she felt like she was ready to face it. She didn't know how to love, not completely, but she was willing to learn. And with Adam by her side, maybe, just maybe, she could finally learn how to let go of the fear and embrace the possibility of love. The days after their kiss were filled with quiet moments and unspoken words, but Vora felt something shift inside her. It was as if the walls she had built around her heart had begun to crumble, piece by piece. She had never allowed herself to feel so much, let alone let someone else in. But Adam had shown her that it was possible. Slowly, she began to understand what he had meant when he talked about love. Vora still didn't have all the answers, but she didn't feel as lost as she had before. She wasn't afraid of her feelings anymore, or at least not as much. With Adam by her side, she could face things she had once thought impossible. One afternoon, after a long day of training, Vora sat on the balcony, looking out over the quiet horizon. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden light across. The landscape was a peaceful scene, but for Vora, it felt different now. She had always seen the world through a lens of duty and war, but now she was starting to see it through the lens of possibility. It's a possibility of something more than just survival, more than just fighting. Adam joined her on the balcony, his presence calming. He'd been patient with her, giving her space when she needed it, but always there when she called for him. He didn't pressure her. He let her come to him in her own time, and that patience had made all the difference. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Adam said, his voice gentle. "The world is full of moments like this. Simple, but peaceful." Vora nodded, her gaze fixed on the sunset. "It is," she said, her voice quieter than usual. "I never thought I would find peace. I've always been focused on the fight, on survival. But I think I'm starting to understand what you meant." Adam smiled, sitting down beside her. He didn't say anything. He just let her speak when she was ready. Vora took a deep breath, her fingers brushing the edge of the balcony. The weight of her thoughts felt lighter now, as if she had finally started to release the burden she had been carrying for so long. "I never knew what love was," she said, her voice steady but full of emotion. "I was taught that it was a weakness, that caring for others, was something we couldn't afford. But now I see it differently. I see how you care for everyone, how you give without expecting anything in return. It's not weakness, it's strength." Adam turned to face her, his eyes filled with understanding. "Love isn't something you can control, Vora. It's not a choice, not really. It's something that happens when you least expect it. It's messy and imperfect, but that's what makes it real." Vora looked at him, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never been able to talk about her feelings like this before, never allowed herself to be so open. But with Adam, it felt natural. It felt right. "I don't know if I can love like you do," Vora admitted, her voice soft. "But I want to try. I want to be able to care for someone the way you care for me. I don't know how to start, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to trust." Adam reached out, his hand brushing hers. His touch was gentle, comforting, and Vora didn't pull away. She let herself feel the warmth of his hand in hers, the connection between them that had been growing stronger with each passing day. "You're already doing it, Vora," Adam said quietly. "By trusting me, by opening up, you're already learning. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be yourself." Vora's heart swelled with emotion, and for the first time, she felt a warmth spreading through her chest that had nothing to do with the sun setting. It was something new, something unfamiliar, but it was there, and it was real. For the first time in her life, Vora didn't feel like a weapon or a soldier. She felt like a person, a human being, capable of love and capable of caring for someone else. And it scared her, but in the best way possible. "I've never felt this before," Vora said, her voice shaking slightly. "It's like I'm learning to live, not just survive. And it's overwhelming." Adam's smile softened, and he squeezed her hand gently. "I know, it's not easy, but you're not alone. I'm here, Vora, and I'm not going anywhere." Vora's eyes filled with tears, though they were different from the tears she had shed before. These weren't tears of fear or confusion. These were tears of relief, of understanding. She had spent so long hiding from the emotions that had always been inside her, but now, with Adam by her side, she was finally allowing herself to feel. It felt ... right. "I don't know what the future holds," Vora said softly, her voice full of vulnerability. "But I know that with you, I'm not afraid of it anymore." Adam leaned in slightly, his forehead resting against hers. "We'll face it together, Vora. Whatever comes, we'll face it together." For a long moment, they sat there, their foreheads pressed together. The world around them silent, except for the sound of their breathing. Vora felt a calmness wash over her, a peace that she had never known. She didn't know what the future would bring, but for the first time, she felt ready to face it. With Adam by her side, she knew that she could. And as they sat together, watching the sunset, Vora finally understood what love truly was. It wasn't a weakness, as she had once believed. It was a strength, a bond that connected them, that made them stronger together. And in that moment, she knew that she was no longer the soldier she had once been. She was someone new, someone who could love, who could care, and who could be loved in return.